What's going on, everyone? Today we have the meta snapshot for patch 13.4. Bit of a weird patch because it was actually a small patch, but there are a lot of weird little tricks that people are changing in their team comps, and we're going to go over all of those right now. However, the name of the game this patch is going to be the Corki. Corki is just the best attack damage unit right now. And as a 4-cost unit, he's going to be one of the most popular DPS units right now. People are going to be playing him in the Heimerdinger Corki Flex comp, Scrap Corki, and the Urgot Tristana reroll if you go for 4 Artillerists. We'll go through these comps and every other comp after we go through the summary. But next up we have is Enforcer Vi. I think this is one of the strongest vertical comps right now. And lastly, a new surprise, Emissary Sorcerer Swain. I think this is actually like a very solid comp. And if you do get +1 Sorcerer emblems, and sometimes even like a +2, getting to 6 Sorcerer with the Swain Emissary build is super duper powerful. Next up we have is the A tier. So Chem-Baron Cashout, I want to put like a huge asterisk next to this because only play Chem-Baron if you actually know what you're doing. But if you do, it's going to be a very good comp, arguably even an S tier comp. But if you don't know what you're doing, it's like a C tier comp. So keep that in mind when you are playing this. Experiment Twitch, it got hurt quite a bit. His spell got nerfed a little bit. They nerfed Experiment Emblem. But overall, I think Twitch is a very high performing unit, especially if you're going for attack damage items and do not hit the Corki. You could easily play a Twitch if you built like an Infinity Edge early on. Blackrose Flex, going to be taking advantage of the Sorcerer buffs. Same with Sorcerer Zoe. 6 Sorcerer is very popular right now. They're pretty much the same comp though, you just run a lot of Blackrose and Sorcerers. Bruiser Mundo is going to be up next. It's a twist on the Twitch comp, but you only play it if you have a bunch of Bruisers. Ambushers, very solid. There's actually a new way to play them. People are focusing on Smeech now rather than Camille. Dominator, it's okay. It's seen better days. Same with the Emissary Ambessa Corki. Too many people are taking your Corkis now, so this comp is actually pretty difficult to complete. Nocturne reroll, solid if you get the right artifacts. Renata reroll, very good with the 6 Visionary buff. So if you get Visionary Emblem and then you play 6 Visionary Renata, it is extremely powerful. That's why it got buffed up a little bit, but only in specific circumstances. Form Swapper Gangplank. Gangplank's a solid unit overall. It's a little difficult to play this because a lot of people play him as like a flex unit or part of the scrap comp, so sometimes you're not able to get it. But if you get an early Jace, you could play around the 4 Form Swapper in like any build pretty much. There are like so many different builds you can kind of do there. Zeri reroll solid. Conqueror, there are spots for it that you want to take it in. Rebel Zoe, very good. And one other thing I forgot to mention is in the Urgot Tristana reroll, there's also a version of Tristana reroll where you go Tristana plus Sentinels and you don't even run the Urgot, but we'll go over all of these in just a bit. You can take a look at the rest of the B and C tier on your own on the website bunnymuffins.lol/meta, but for like the weird comps, like I do want to mention some of those, like Reunion, very good still. Menaces, still very good. Martial Law, very good. Bronze for Life, why not both, and Brutal Revenge Renni. I'm going to say that these, out of all the weird like trait comps or augment comps, I'd say these are some really good ones right now. But let's go into the tier list. So Corki Heimerdinger Flex, you may have noticed I changed the name a little bit. It used to be called Heimerdinger Corki Flex, but I flipped it around a bit. It's going to be Corki Heimerdinger now because I think you want to focus more on the Corki. He's just that good of a unit. So play this build, you run 6 Sentinel, or you go into Academy, depending on what Academy items are, and also depending if you hit Jace or Rumble. And you could eventually even pivot into the Academy comp eventually, because you could always put the Corki items onto your Jace. But I think as like a mid to late game carry, in like late stage 4, all of stage 5, early stage 6, I think Corki is a fantastic unit right now. He can use a bunch of different items. Like my favorite's going to be the Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, and a sword if you have scrap. Sometimes you don't have scrap in this comp because you don't have Rumble yet, but if you do, just drop a sword on him, it saves you an item. But he could also use red buff, he could use stuff like Guard Breaker, Giant Slayer. Any sort of attack damage item is going to work fantastic on Corki. And then on the Heimerdinger, if you get ability power items, drop them on him. Normally I build my Corki items first, build some tank items, and then find the Heimerdinger items on Carousel later on in the game. And don't forget, you could also focus on your Rumble too if he gets there. I don't mean like Rumble 2, sir, I mean Rumble as well. For item holders, Ezreal is going to be a great item holder for your attack damage items. Of course, as I said before, you could swap Corki's items onto Jace later on if you want to play like 6 Academy or something like that. But Pretty much when you play Academy, it's like a mix between Academy, Sentinels, Visionaries, like Rebel. There's a lot of things you can kind of flex in and out, but mainly like the two traits you're playing around with is Sentinel and Academy, and just mixing and matching whatever you're hitting that game. This comp does really well with +1 emblems for both Sentinel and Academy. If I get a Sentinel emblem, I most likely put it on my Jace and drop him in the front line, or I just put it on one of my random units I don't care about. But to play this, you want to do a standard leveling or a fast 8. Roll down for your 2-star 4-cost units. Once you hit them, go up to level 9, and then play around the legendaries such as Rumble and Jace after that. Pretty straightforward comp, nothing too crazy, but there are a lot of different roads you could kind of diverge into if you want to flex your comp a little bit. Next comp up we have is Scrap Corki. So a funny thing here that people are doing nowadays is they're doing the frontline Corki build. The reason why it's okay to do this is because Scrap gives you a shield on all your units, and Corki taking damage allows him to cast faster and also gets value off his shield rather than just having it like sit and do nothing. So you put him in the front, he takes some damage, then he does his strafing thing where he moves away, and it does pretty well. Like, I don't know why people only did it this patch. I think some people did it a little bit in the last patch, but it's kind of like a new thing that people are doing. I think there is a lot of merit to this. A lot of times there's a lot of weird stuff going on where people are like frontlining Kogmaw or something like that. I'm like, no, that's kind of troll. But with the Corki frontline, I think it actually is legit. But with Scrap, you could play a couple of different versions. Let's click into this. All the comp images lead to a team builder if you want to play around with it on your own. As we mentioned in previous videos, the belt on the Corki is really good when you have 6 Scrap, because at 6 Scrap, all components get transformed into full items and become lucky. So that means it picks from a very specific pool. So putting a belt on your Corki always gives him Guard Breaker, which is a fantastic item if you have an Infinity Edge, because you get crit from Infinity Edge and then even more crit from Guard Breaker, and also get the damage amp from Guard Breaker. It's just a very nice combo, and there's no bad outcome. But to play this comp, you want to play the 6 Scrap units, which are going to be these units in the top left right now. And if you want to flex units in, I like Alawi a lot, but it relies on getting Rumble. Oftentimes you don't get the Rumble yet. So before you get Alawi, you could play around Elise. And some people are also doing a combo of Vi, and they're going for Loris as well. So they do something like this where they have Vi for the Pit Fighter with the Gangplank, Loris for Sentinel with Rumble, and then Loris for Enforcer with Vi. So there are a couple of different ways you could kind of play this. For me, if I hit an Alawi, I'm going to play him because I think he is one of the strongest 4-cost tank units, if not the strongest. But if he's really contested because everyone else is playing Alawi, because you could argue, like, why am I playing Corki with Scrap if I could play him with Sentinels, 6 Sentinels in this other build? Sometimes it depends if you get Alawi or not, right? But I think both builds are very workable, and there are a lot of different directions you could go into for the random 4-cost units that you put in to fill random synergies. If you want to learn more about the Scrap Corki comp, I have a list of all the like random components you should put on your units. I bold the items that are going to be used in the early to mid game when you do not have lucky items, because you don't always get that. You only unlock it at 6 Scrap. But again, all that info will be on the website bunnymuffins.lol/meta, where we have the longest player run tier list. I think it's over 5 years old right now. But next up we have is Urgot Tristana reroll. So this comp got nerfed a little bit. Urgot lost 5 armor and magic resist, which is sizable. I'm not going to deny that. But I still think this comp is very, very good. No one should be contesting you on this, so only go for this if it's uncontested. And if you still meet the requirements for this comp, which is like really good augments, it's like an augment check. You want like the Unleash the Beast augment. Starry Knight's pretty good too. Naturaling a ton of Urgots is also pretty nice. Bronze for Life is really good. A lot of different ways to play this. But if you get one of those specific augments, it makes the comp really, really powerful. Get some tank anomaly onto your Urgot and you're going to be good to go. But the Sentinel build, I want to bring some light to. So this one is going to be a Tristana carry only, and then you just put a bunch of frontliners there. So Rageblade, mandatory. Hexsec Gunblade, also mandatory. And Infinity Edge, it's Tristana's best item. So the way this build works is that you have the 6 Sentinels up in the front, tank items on whoever is your tankiest unit. So sometimes you get a 3-star Rel or 3-star Leona. Itemize those as your tanks if they are 3-star. If not, if you have a 2-star Alawi, she's going to be fine too. The tank item holder doesn't really matter. Just make sure you have some strong tank. Because you have so many frontline units, you stack infinite stacks with this Rage Blade. You heal everyone up with a Gunblade as you scale through the fight. And then Infinity Edge is just her best item because it allows her to crit off of her spell. Combine that with some random artillerist unit. It could be either Ezreal or Corki. Corki's nice because you get Scrap with Rumble, but before that, Ezreal's nice because you get Rebel for Alawi and Aurelia. And we do only have 8 units here, so if you do manage to reach level 9 and also have like a +1 artillerist or something like that, you could go ahead and play 4 artillerists at level 9. Not a bad idea there, but this comp is very simple to play. I like this version a lot. Have not been able to try it yet in my games, but I've seen it in action and it is very, very powerful. Definitely a highly underrated comp right now, this Tristana Sentinel reroll build. But 2-cost reroll for this type of team comp, where you go to level 6, roll down, full instructions in the how to play section. Next comp up we have is Enforcer, Vi and Caitlyn. This comp is going to be only playable, at least for me, only playable for most people if you get the +1 Enforcer from the emblem. A lot of people make this work without the +1, they just go 6 Enforcer and leave it at that. I don't really like playing it that way, but if you are an Enforcer specialist, let's say, or like an Enforcer 1 trick, then yeah, you could play Enforcer a ton. But for most people, if you're trying out this comp, only go for it if you have +1 Enforcer, because there are a lot of other comps to go for instead. My favorite part about this comp is that there's so many people to put the emblem on, so many units to fit into the build, because Enforcers have so many different traits that they can activate. So if we take out all the non-Enforcer units, we have built-in Sniper from Maddie and Caitlyn already, and then we have Ambushers, Bruisers, Pit Fighters, Quick Striker, and Sentinel. And the good news about all these traits is that Ambusher, you can put in a Legendary and Jinx if you really want. Bruiser, Elise, 4-cost AoE stun, fantastic. Pit Fighters, Savika, amazing. Gangplank, pretty flexible unit, has a triple trait. Good mid-game item holder. Quick Striker, Ambessa, fantastic unit. You get Emissary buff from that. If you have Martial Law augment, that's going to be really good for this comp also. And then for Sentinels, you could do like Rumble or Alawi. Rumble is a legendary and Alawi is the best 4-cost tank in the game. So you have a lot of different options for different units to tech in after you get your like 7 Enforcer units plus the emblem. So no matter what, as long as you get like a 1-star Caitlyn, you're going to be in a really, really good shape. But standard leveling for this comp, focus around your 4-cost units, Vi plus like everyone else we talked about, and then try to hit level 9, get some legendaries after that to really cap out your team. Next build up we have is Emissary Sorcerer, new kid on the block. People are going 4 Emissary, 4 Sorcerer. It's hard to get to 6 Sorcerer, but again, if you have the +1 emblem, we have 8 units out on the field right now. So if you get 2 Sorcerer things, like you can make it work. If you go level 9 and have a +1 Sorcerer, you can make it work. But you're really playing around your Swain. Just do Shojin, Jeweled Gauntlet, Guardbreaker. That's going to be the best 3-item combo on him. By the way, you could always check the best item combinations if you head on over to the Explorer. Type in Swain, 3-star him, items. Let's check it out. Like, some people put him in the front line for some builds, but we're doing backline this time. Spear Shojin, you have to have the mana regen item, right? Jeweled Gauntlet is great if you have Sorcerer because you get AP already. And then if you look at this, like, what's the last item? It's going to be Guardbreaker, 3.11. That's incredible, right? Like, we could add in more items here, but pretty much like the damage amp items are going to be pretty solid on him, and Guardbreaker is just going to be one of the best ones right now. Keep in mind though, for like every Sorcerer comp, it doesn't really come online until you get LeBlanc. Like, all these Sorcerer comps without LeBlanc kind of suck. So be aware of that when you are kind of playing this build. But main tank's going to be Garen. He's always going to be a solid tank. Elise secondary tank. If you have extra items, drop them on Nami. But the good news about this build is that for the LeBlanc, you just need her 1-star. You don't really need her 2-star. I mean, like, of course I'd love her 2-star. I'd love her 3-star. But, you know, I'm probably not going to get that in my game. But 1-star is good enough, you know? But pretty much this comp is very good if you are able to get a ton of Swains going. Not too many people, I think, are playing this comp yet. And if you're going hard into Sorcerers, like, sometimes you could go for the 6 Sorcerer build. But if you manage to get all the Emissaries, you could definitely go for this. I think it's going to be a bit stronger. Let's go into the next build, which is going to be the A tiers. We have Chem-Baron Cashout. Sometimes you could cash it out. Sometimes you could keep all the Chem-Barons. Like I have the legendary build here and the regular build here. You need to get pretty lucky with this comp. Not going to lie, like Chem-Baron emblem at the start of the game, War on the Undercity at the start of the game, getting like one of the health augments in stage 3, Tiniest Titans or Titanic Titans, I forget the exact names. You have to manage to not get griefed too many times. Like I'd say if you get griefed once, it's fine, but anything more than that is a big no-no. But overall, for this team comp, you just need the golden 500 cash out. And the way to play this is mainly by managing your losses. So I found that recently, no one's really open forting that much for the Chem-Barons because there's only like one Chem-Baron player nowadays. Before there are like 2 of them. But I will say that like the big skill difference is being able to lose by a few units instead of by a ton of units. That way you're able to reach the 500 cash out much more safely. Once you do hit the cash out, the comp's really easy to play. I mean, you just put the items on whoever the item is recommended for in like 90% of cases, or you just put them all on Savika or whoever has your emblem, and then you just win every round. Like you have to, right? Because you grief your whole game in order to get them. But as long as you have like some semblance of 2-star units, like you should be able to win a bunch of rounds with like all the Chem-Baron units. And like you most likely have Sabika by the time you cash out anyways, because she often comes out of one of the rewards. Next build up we have is going to be the Experiment Twitch build. Like a lot of people don't like the Twitch builds anymore. I think he's still fine though. Like he does perfectly well. Like if you slammed a Rageblade earlier, what other comp are you gonna run, right? You could run like Zeri, you could run Twitch, Kogmaw, like Tristana. But if you ever get like a fast 8 augment, such as like Slammin', Epic, Cluttered Mind, things like that, I don't see why I wouldn't go Twitch if I have like a Rageblade slammed, right? Like he just makes the most sense. And even without the Experiment emblem, you could still play this. You could hit 5 with Zyra, Urgot, Mundo, and Nunu. If you want to play the Bruiser version, if you happen to hit a ton of Bruisers, you could play it without the Bruiser emblem. But of course it's going to be better with it. And then you could also play it with Watchers. There's like a lot of ways to play Twitch. You just play it with any sort of frontline. And since people are underrating this comp right now, you're going to be uncontested in a lot of games. And he performs just fine. Like as long as you have some tank line. Like the reason why people don't like him as much is because the frontline kind of sucks. Like Mundo dies way too easily as a 4-cost tank. But if you're uncontested on a lot of stuff, like it's pretty easy to hit most of your team. Or if you have like an econ augment, even better, right? All in all, like the most important thing is just getting tank items on Mundo, like the pure tank items, and then getting a IE and Rageblade on Twitch. Third item I find doesn't really matter that much. And then for the Experiment hexes, I like doing Twitch, Mundo, and Zyra if we have 2 backline Experiment hexes. Sometimes there are 2 in the front though, in which case I'd do Twitch, Mundo, and Urgot. And then to fill out the rest of the team, like Elise makes the most sense. She's just a good 4-cost tank, like a secondary tank, CC unit, utility, whatever you want to call her. Mordekaiser in the super late game's good. You could also get Caitlyn in the super late game. And then Vi is decent if you do have the Caitlyn, because you get Pit Fighter and Enforcer on her. She actually becomes pretty beefy. And again, the main thing you want in this team comp are tanks. Next build up we have is Blackrose Flex. This is going to be the same as the Sorcerer comp we have down here. They're literally the same comp, but you want to focus on the top version here. We have Sorcerers, Blackrose, Form Swapper, and Emissary. So it's just going to be 6 Sorcerer. With the 6 Sorcerer build, you get the damage reduction on the units that the Sorcerers hit. I think it's like 20%. It's pretty good. And that used to be only attainable from the 8 Sorcerer buff. But now that it's at 6, it's much easier to do. And Zoe will demolish everyone. And your Swain, even though he's a 2-star Swain, will be able to tank a bunch of stuff because of the damage reduction that you get. One important thing to do with this comp though is make sure you put your anomaly on Swain, because he's just too important. You need frontline in this build, and when you have like 10 units in the backline, obviously it's not 10. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units in the back and 3 in the front, not including Scion. You need to focus a bit more on your tanks because you already have so many damage units in your team. That's why even though he's a 3-cost 2-star unit, like I still like putting Anomaly on the Swain. And the best part about Blackrose Flex is that you don't have to play Sorcerer. You could play the Visionaries or the Elise in the backline as well, and then play some sort of like late game comp with a bunch of legendaries. Again, I've said this in previous videos, but a lot of times you don't have to use a comp all the way through the end of the game. Sometimes you could just play it and then just play like all 2-star legendaries. Like that's going to be a very strong team. We also have like 6 costs this set, and you can make a very solid team just by being like the Bill Gates comp. I don't even know why we call it the Bill Gates comp the entire time TFT's been out, because I'm pretty sure he wasn't even the richest man when people were calling all the expensive comps by that name, which I think is pretty funny. But it's probably because when we were growing up, he was the richest person for a super long time. Next build up we have is the same build, Sorcerer Zoe. 6 Sorcerer, 5 Blackrose, same exact comp. I'm just kind of keeping them together in the meantime right now. But, oh, also items. I forgot to talk about that. You want some sort of magic resistance shredding. That's going to be from either Ionic Spark on your Swain, or in like a static shiv on your backline. You could put it on like Nami, LeBlanc, things like that. I like having some sort of anti-heal effect, so Morello on LeBlanc is really good, or Sunfire Cape on Swain. And then for LeBlanc and Zoe, both of them love the Nashor's Tooth and Shojin combo, just cast really often. And then for damage, I like having a Jeweled Gauntlet on Zoe. That way you can get a lot of AP from Sorcerer trait, get mana from the Spear Shojin, get attack speed from the Nashor's Tooth, and then get critical strike from the Jeweled Gauntlet. You always want to dip into each of the pools of like ways to deal damage or like ways to become more tanky rather than go all in on one of the stats. It's just the way the math works out is just really good to do in TFT. Next build up we have is going to be Bruiser Mundo. It's just generic Twitch build, but you play all the Bruiser units. So you could just add this to your team planner, click this button over here, it's your team code, and then you could paste it into your Riot client to add it to your list of pre-made teams. But it's a very easy build to do. Just play all the Bruisers plus Twitch, and like, yeah, the other units, they do not really matter too much. Like, yeah, you want to Sniper, but like Silco could be anyone. I'd rather have Victor, for example. But for every comp I play, I want Victor. Oh, yeah, they nerfed Victor, but I don't know if it actually affected him that much. If you ever want to do any sort of data checking, head on over to teamfight.lol and look at that. Victor actually is the worst 6 cost unit right now in terms of average placement. Of course, like, he's going to be played the most still because he's so flexible. You don't need to build around him at all. In fact, he does not need any items. Whereas Mel, you want a mana item on her. Warwick, you want like 3 items on him. But let's compare his win rate to what it was last patch. Victor was 2.89 and now he is a 3 point something. So it was like a very small nerf. Actually, it was like a medium-sized nerf. But I thought it would actually affect him a bit more, but 6 costs are just too OP that it does not matter. He's still very, very good. Play him in every comp. Next one up we have is Ambushers. We have the Smeech build. This one's going to be the most popular comp out there right now for Ambushers. Like, I personally am a huge fan of the Echo build with Firelights and running 2 Echoes, but the main purpose of Ambushers is to go for one of the reroll comps, either Camille or Smeech. And right now, Smeech is the one to go for. Like, we can check the data again. We could look at 2 cost, 3-star average placement. I mean, Camille's still very good, right? You could easily run Camille, but Smeech, you'd be surprised. Like, a lot more people are going for it, and he is super duper duper strong. Like, you can see the 3-star rate for Camille, 14.85. It's a very low 3-star rate. That means like every time she's played, they only 3-star her that often, which means that most people are really playing Smeech. Another way to kind of test this is like line up both 3-star Smeech and 3-star Camille and then exclude 3-star Smeech, and you'll see that 3-star Camille on her own, complete garbage. So it's pretty much a Smeech build. You're not really talking about Camille at all. So I would follow the first build. Luckily, it's the same exact units, but instead of itemizing Camille, you itemize Smeech, and his build's a little different. You want the Bloodthirster, Titan's Resolve, and the Hand of Justice. It's going to be really powerful on him. And also all the anomalies that Camille likes, Smeech also likes. Invisibility, going to be very popular. Comeback Story, Last Chance, like anything with damage amp is good. Also, like, Finisher isn't bad on Smeech. That's an awful anomaly most of the time, but on Smeech it's actually pretty good because he focuses down weak targets, so the execute's kind of nice to get him to go on to the next person. So I'd definitely try that out on Smeech. Very fun to do. But the other ones are probably a bit better. But Finisher is just such an awful anomaly that when I know a unit is decent with it, I want to tell you guys because that's probably the only time you'll take it. But you do a 3-cost reroll with this build. I mean, like, the reroll pattern depends on which version you're running, right? But for Smeech, he's a 3-cost unit. We want to do 3-cost reroll. Pick up Echoes on the way. Oftentimes when you do a 3-cost reroll, you hit the 2-star 4-costs like pretty late, but you do get them eventually. And Echo's going to be a great secondary carry. You could also use Jinx in the backline if you manage to hit her. But very powerful comp. Positioning on Smeech doesn't matter too much because he jumps around anyways, so you could really put him anywhere. Just make sure he gets buffed up by Garen because you want that bonus health on him. Next build up we have is going to be the Dominators. Dominators are not that great right now, to be honest, but no one's playing them, so if you do get a chance to go for it, like, sure, why not? If I do AP opener, like AP items, because I'm going Sorcerer or like Heimerdinger, Visionary, Renata maybe. If I get like a ton of Dominators, like, yeah, why not play it, you know? But Dominators are complete trash without Mordekaiser, so unless you can make it there, I'd kind of avoid the comp, but it is still playable. You just need a very good situation to play it. Same for Emissary, Corki, and Ambessa. Like, in a vacuum, this comp is very good, but everyone's taking your Corki, so because of that, sometimes you're running like an Ezreal or something like that, and obviously, who's better, Ezreal or Corki? Boy, I wonder. 4 is greater than 3, so Corki's better. Of course, not everyone knows that, as I found out by playing 10 years of League of Legends. Sometimes people do not know that 4 people is more than 3 people, and then they start the fight anyways. But if you are able to hit this comp, like you get Corki for free, and then you see like the Emissary units, like this comp is very, very strong. Probably one of the cooler comps of the set, in my opinion, because you just run so many traits, it's kind of interesting. It literally goes off the screen. But tank items on Garen, bruiser items on Ambessa, AD items on Corki, and then leftovers, I like putting them on Vi, Swain, or Gangplank. If you get AP items, you could put it on Twisted Fate. It's not the end of the world, but there's also a Rumble version over here, which is pretty nice, in which case like Rumble could kind of use the AP items. But all in all, this comp is like good if you can hit it, but it's hard to hit because everyone's taking your Corki. Next build up we have is Quick Striker Nocturne. Only play this with artifact items. I have a list of them down here of ways to get +1 range, and I would not play it otherwise because the comp is just too weak. We'll talk about Twisted Fate reroll later. I don't think he's that good. People play him in like a Sentinel build. Actually, we could talk about it right now. And like, I think it's like B tier. I think at the tier list at the top, I have him at like the top of the B tier. And the reason why he is there is because the build just isn't that good. Like, you need to hit 2 3-star 3 costs to get going. And even if you do, you're not like guaranteed to win the game. I'm not saying it should be a guarantee, but like the main power from Quick Striker and a lot of the reason why TF's data looks good is because people are going for Nocturne and they just happen to hit Twisted Fate. It's not actually because Twisted Fate is doing some sort of like giga carrying. I hope I'm wrong on this because I think Twisted Fate is a cool unit, but right now, like even in the Twisted Fate Sentinel build that people are doing, I don't think it's that great. You can play it if you want, and if you get like a super spot for it, like obviously go for it. Like if you hit any comp for free, like yeah, it's gonna be good, right? But if you're just trying to go for like Twisted Fate from the start of the game or like even from the middle of the game, I don't think you're gonna have that great of a time, but you might do okay on it. It's just hard to get 3-star 3 cost units in a lot of games, so when you do hit them, you better get like a huge power spike. Next build up, we have Renata Glask reroll. I think this build has a revival right now because you could play it with 6 Visionary, but I would only do it with a +1 emblem for Visionary emblem. So right now we have the classic like 6 Sentinel 4 Visionary board, but if we get +1 Visionary, we could add in another Visionary unit. Obviously you want like Malzahar, right? But like it could be anyone. It doesn't really matter who. Heimerdinger, Malzahar, just get to 6 Visionary and also get the emblem. So put this on whoever, doesn't really matter. But this comp is really good because you activate the 6 Visionary bonus, and that means you get abilities heal an ally for 18% of damage dealt, which is really, really nice because it's kind of like a free effect, and you also get obviously like scaling increased mana gain as you go from 2 to 4 to 6. But Renata reroll is just like a classic 2-cost reroll. Nothing too complicated here. Get Renata 3-star and some tank 3-star and kind of just roll with it. I personally would probably only play this with either like Starry Night or with a Visionary emblem so that I could get to 6 Visionary, but the standard version is still very playable. Next build up we have is Form Swapper Gangplank. If you get 4 Form Swapper, this one's good. We can kind of skip over that. Zeri reroll is okay. Not the best comp, but definitely playable. It's really good with anger issues if you ever get that. So if you get that augment and you have like some sniper build, this is something to consider. Scar got buffed a little bit, but I don't think it's enough to make this like the best comp ever or anything like that, but it definitely is solid and has some spots to play in. Conqueror, only good if you get it in the early game for Conqueror with upgrades. so that you could start stacking. Rebel Zoe, this comp dropped down a ton. Yeah, like they're just new toys to play with now. Alawi's taken by all the Sentinel players, so you can't get Alawi anymore. Zoe's being taken by Sorcerer players. Before, when Rebel was good, no one was playing Zoe except if you were playing the Rebel version. And then lastly, like, you need Jinx, but even if she is not contested, she's hard to hit, but she is contested because people are playing Ambushers a bunch, and they were not playing her when Rebel was good before. So yeah, Rebel kind of sucks unless you high roll it, but if you do high roll it, you will win the game, or at least have a very good chance to. That should round out the A tier. And yeah, we don't really need to cover the B and C tier that much. Like, they are definitely playable comps there. And if you get like super spots for them, like people were mad I put Family in C tier. Like, trust me, I love Family, and I was spamming Family a lot, even when they sucked, because I think the comp is fun. But if I were to tell you whether you should play Family or like Ambushers, because both of them are reroll comps, like, if your goal is to climb a little easier, like, Ambushers on average are going to outperform the Family comp. Like, I'm sorry. It's just how the world works on this patch. Doesn't mean you can't play Family, and it doesn't mean you can't win with Family. Like, of course, if you get like 5 Family, everyone 3-star, perfect items, like, yeah, you're going to do really well with Family. Or if you get like perfect artifact items on your Family build, like, yeah, you're going to do really well also. But that's a lot of ifs, you know? And if you really want to prove me super wrong, like, go hit the highest ranks by playing only Family. Like, I don't think anyone can do that. I don't even think the best players can do that. It's just not a great build, but it is still playable, but you have to get very specific spots for it. Like, the way you could think about the S, A, and B and C tier is like, how often should I go for it for like the risk versus reward? So like, sometimes I have in the S tier a comp that you don't go very often, but if you do get it, it performs super duper well. Or I have a comp here that you could go like every single game, or you see like at least one of these comps in every single one of your games. And then sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't, but they're played very often because people think it's good. A tier is kind of like, oh, if I get this like weird emblem, the comp becomes good. And like, yeah, that's going to be like a lot of the comps in the A tier because they're situational, and sometimes they're like bonkers good, but sometimes they're just like pretty good. And then B tier, it's like, here you need to hit like all the units naturally without rolling. Maybe you have like a perfect augment combination, or like you hit the legendary really early on. Then those comps can be playable. But C tier, you need to get like all of those combined. Well, for Family, there's no legendary unit that you need, but you kind of see what I'm getting at. Like, you need perfect artifact items and like Family emblem. It's kind of hard to do. But overall, I think this patch is pretty decent so far. Like, it is relatively new. It just came out yesterday. So I will be updating this tier list next week, but I post every single Friday. Someone asked me like, oh, when do you post this? And it's always been every single Friday. Sometimes at the very start of the set, I post on Thursdays. But the way I'll be approaching the patch is like, obviously if I get an emblem, I'm going to do one of the stupid emblem comps. Like, this is not a comprehensive list. It's just like some stuff that I have out here. But pretty much any emblem, like, yeah, sometimes I like to just turn my brain off and just hard force it if I have like a good start for it. Like, if I have Sorcerer emblem offered to me and I have like a Lux 2 already, or like whatever Sorcerer 2-star already, then yeah, like go for it, right? Or if I have like an early Swain on my bench from the neutral rounds, it's like, yeah, go Sorcerers, because you could get to 4 Sorc really easily. But if you don't have those conditions met, like, you might want to avoid going for Sorcerers because it's going to be hard to fill out the trait. Only pick emblems if you have the units for the emblem. If not, the augment that you take for it becomes awful. There are exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, like, that is true. For most other games, I'm going to be defaulting AP or AD items. So if I have AP items, I think like Sorcerers and like sometimes a Heimerdinger would be pretty decent. Like, the Heimerdinger comp is like, it's more of a Corki comp, but you want to build items for both of them anyways. I like this comp a lot if you have like Scuttle Puddle, because you end up getting a ton of item components. That way you could get 3 tank items, 3 Heimerdinger items, 3 Corki items, and sometimes even like extra items for your legendaries in the late game. For AD comps, it's pretty easy. Like, I think most people are going to go AD this patch because like all the Corki builds are good. I think Twitch is excellent. Urgot Reroll, very good. The Tristana Sentinel build is very viable too. People really like going for Zeri. So many different comps to play with the AD items right now that I think it's just a great option to kind of go for. But that is going to be it for me today. But if you do have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I'll try to answer as many as I can. And there's no such thing as a stupid question. So if you're not sure about something about what I said, or think it's this way instead of that way, let me know down in the comments. But that is going to be it for me today. I will be coming out with a coaching video sometime this weekend. I'm going to do silver to master. I'm going to review one game from each rank from silver to master. If you want to be featured in some of these videos, submit them down into the form in the description for a chance to be a part of those compilations. But that is going to be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.